Aurora's shoes skidded across wet cobblestone as she bolted from the town car, her clutch bag flying open behind her, papers scattering into the rain-soaked alley like startled birds. "Aurora, stop!" Alessandro's voice cracked through the downpour, and she felt his hand miss her elbow by inches as she cut left between two dumpsters, heart slamming against her ribs. "Get away from me. You don't understand what you just walked into." "I understand exactly what I walked into." She spun, chest heaving, mascara running in dark streaks down her cheeks. Behind Alessandro, two black SUVs screeched around the corner, headlights slicing through the rain. "I walked into a room full of men counting money next to a body bag. Alessandro." He didn't flinch. He never flinched. That was the thing she used to love about him before tonight. "That body bag was going to be yours if I hadn't gotten there first." The words landed like a slap. Aurora's back hit the brick wall behind her, cold water running down her spine, and for one suspended second neither of them moved. If you've ever loved someone and discovered you never actually knew them, hit subscribe now, because this story is about to show you exactly how far that kind of love can bend before it breaks. "Explain," she said. "Right now, or I scream, and I don't care who hears it." Alessandro closed the distance between them slowly, rain plastering his dark hair to his forehead, the ink on his neck disappearing beneath his soaked collar. "The man you saw on the floor was going to kidnap you tomorrow morning outside your bakery. I've had eyes on him for 6 days." 6 days. Aurora's voice cracked. 6 days, and you said nothing. "I was protecting you. You were lying to me." She shoved him, both palms against his chest, and he let her absorb the force like it was nothing, like she was nothing but a storm passing through him. 6 months, Alessandro. 6 months of dinners and phone calls, and you letting me believe you owned restaurants and real estate. I own plenty of restaurants. Don't. Her laugh came out broken. "Don't you dare make jokes right now." Thunder rolled somewhere over the harbor, and in the flash of lightning that followed, Aurora saw it. Really saw it. The way his men were positioning themselves at both ends of the alley, weapons half hidden beneath their jackets, eyes scanning rooftops like this was routine. Like this was Tuesday. "Who are you?" she whispered. Alessandro's jaw tightened. For a man who'd never lost his composure in a boardroom, in a courtroom, in a room where his own father had once put a gun on the table between them, he looked, for the first time in Aurora's memory, afraid. "Alessandro De Luca," he said quietly. "Everyone in this city knows that name." "I don't." "That's because I made sure you never had to." A car door slammed somewhere behind him. A woman's voice, sharp, accented, furious, cut through the rain. "Is this her?" Aurora's eyes flicked past Alessandro's shoulder to the woman stepping out of the second SUV, dressed in black, diamonds catching the streetlight, moving like she owned the very air around her. "Alessandro," Aurora said low. "Who is that?" He didn't answer right away, and that silence told her more than anything he could have said. "That," the woman answered for him, stopping a few feet away, rain sliding off an umbrella one of the men rushed to open over her, "is Isabella Moretti, Alessandro's fiancée." The word hit Aurora like the alley wall had, except this time there was nothing behind her to catch her. "Ex," Alessandro snapped, whipping around. "Ex-fiancée. Isabella, I told you never to come near her. And yet here I am." Isabella's eyes swept over Aurora, the rain-ruined dress, the mud on her knees, the panic still trembling in her hands, with the kind of contempt that didn't need words. "So, this is what you traded the Moretti alliance for. Get back in the car." Not until she understands what she's standing in the middle of. Isabella's smile was cold, precise, rehearsed. "Ask him, Cara. Ask him what happens to women who get too close to Alessandro De Luca and then decide they want to leave." Aurora's stomach dropped. What is she talking about? Alessandro's hands curled into fists at his sides, rain running off his knuckles. "Isabella. Ask him about the last one." The alley went silent except for the rain hammering the dumpsters, except for the distant wail of a siren 2 streets over, except for the sound of Aurora's own pulse roaring in her ears. "The last one," Aurora repeated, staring at the man she thought she knew, watching something shift behind his eyes, guilt, maybe, or grief, or both. Alessandro, what happened to the last woman? He opened his mouth to answer, and that was the exact moment gunfire shattered the second-floor window above them, and Alessandro moved on pure instinct, wrapping his body around Aurora's and driving them both hard into the wet stone ground as glass rained down where she'd been standing 3 seconds earlier. Glass rained across the cobblestones in a glittering sheet, and Aurora's scream tore through the alley as Alessandro's weight crushed the air from her lungs. His arm curled protectively around her skull. "Stay down," he growled against her ear, his other hand already reaching for the pistol at his hip. "Alessandro, I said stay down." Above them, his men were already moving, 3 shadows scaling the fire escape, while 2 more dragged Isabella bodily back in her SUV despite her shrieking protests. Muzzle flashes lit the broken window like strobe lights, and Aurora pressed her face into the wet stone, every instinct in her body screaming to run, and every ounce of training in Alessandro's screaming to hold his ground. "Marco!" Alessandro barked. "Roof access now. On it, boss." The exchange lasted 11 seconds. 11 seconds of gunfire, of Aurora's heart trying to climb out her throat, and then silence, sudden, ringing, absolute, followed by a body hitting the pavement 2 stories up and rolling off the fire escape, landing in a heap near the dumpster. Alessandro rose first, pulling Aurora up by both arms, his eyes scanning every rooftop, every window, every shadow like a man who'd done this 1,000 times and never once let himself relax between the 999th and the 1,000th. "Are you hit?" His hands moved over her shoulders, her arms, checking. "Aurora, look at me. Are you hit?" "No." Her voice came out a whisper. "No, I'm fine." "You're not fine." He pulled her against his chest anyway, and despite everything, despite Isabella, despite the body in the alley, despite 6 months of lies stacked on top of each other like bricks in a wall she hadn't known she was living behind, Aurora let him, because her legs had stopped being reliable and his heartbeat under her ear was the only steady thing left in the world. "Who was that?" she managed. "Who was shooting at us?" Alessandro's jaw ticked. "Someone who wants what's mine." "I'm not a thing you own, Alessandro." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" She pushed back from him, rain plastering her hair to her face, mascara long gone, and something in her, something that had survived a father's abandonment, a mother's illness, years of being told she took up too much space in every room she entered, straightened her spine even now, soaked and shaking in an alley full of broken glass. "Because from where I'm standing, I just watched a woman get carried into a car and men die on a rooftop, and you still haven't told me a single true thing since I met you." "I told you I loved you." His voice cracked on the last word, and it was the first crack Aurora had heard in 6 months of knowing him. "That was true. That's the only thing that's been true." "Prove it." Around them, sirens grew louder, closer, and one of his men, Marco, blood on his knuckles, a fresh cut above his eye, jogged toward them with urgency written across his face. "Boss, we need to move. Cops are 3 minutes out, and that's not a conversation you want to have standing over a body." Alessandro didn't look away from Aurora. "Give us a minute." "Boss." "A minute, Marco." Marco retreated, and Alessandro reached into his soaked jacket, pulling out something small and heavy that caught what little light the alley had left. The same ring Aurora had thrown at his feet a lifetime ago, 20 minutes and 1,000 years ago, back when she thought the worst thing he'd hidden from her was a second address. "I need you to listen to me," he said, "and I need you to actually hear it, because after tonight you have every right to walk away and never look back, and I won't stop you. But before you decide, you need to know why this ring, why you, matters more than anything Isabella Moretti or my father or this entire family has ever tried to take from me." Aurora's eyes dropped to the ring, rain sliding off its surface, diamond catching the flash of a distant siren's blue light. "Then tell me." "Not here." His eyes swept the alley again, jaw tight, the sound of sirens now close enough to rattle the windows. "Not like this. Get in the car." "I'm not getting in a car with you after what just happened." "Aurora." He said her name the way he'd said it that first night, 6 months ago, in the bakery where flour dust hung in the air like gold, and she'd laughed at something stupid he'd said, and hadn't stopped thinking about him since. That man on the rooftop wasn't trying to kill you tonight. He was trying to send me a message. And if you walk out of my protection right now, the next message will come through you. Her stomach turned cold. What message? That's what I need to explain. He held out his hand, not commanding this time, just open, just waiting. Please. Behind them, Marco's voice rose in urgency. Boss, 60 seconds. Aurora looked at his outstretched hand, at the ring still glinting in his other, at the blood, someone else's blood, smeared across his knuckles, and somewhere behind her ribs a decision was forming that terrified her more than the gunfire had. If you lie to me one more time, she said, taking his hand, I will walk into that police station myself and tell them everything I saw tonight. I know. I mean it, Alessandro. I know. He pulled her toward the waiting SUV, glass crunching under their feet, the body by the dumpster already being wrapped by two of his men with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this before and would do it again. That's exactly why I'm finally going to tell you the truth. The SUV door slammed shut behind them, sealing out the rain, the sirens, the alley, and as the engine roared to life and the city blurred past the windows, Alessandro turned to her with an expression she'd never seen on him before. Not the mask he wore in boardrooms, not the calm he wore over bodies. Fear. The woman before you, he said quietly. Her name was Julia, and what happened to her is the reason I never wanted to fall in love again. The city lights streaked past the rain-slicked windows in long amber smears, and Aurora sat rigid against the leather seat, watching Alessandro's hands, steady hands, killer's hands, twist the ring between his fingers like it weighed more than gold and diamonds should. Julia, she repeated. You've never mentioned her once. There's a reason for that. Alessandro's eyes stayed fixed on the passing streets, jaw carved from stone. She was my fiancée before Isabella, before the arrangement my father forced on me. Julia was... He stopped, exhaled hard through his nose. She was the first person who ever made me want a life outside of this family. Outside the guns, the territories, the wars that never end. What happened to her? Marco, driving, met Alessandro's eyes once in the rearview mirror and said nothing, which told Aurora more than words could have. My father found out I planned to leave the business for her, Alessandro said. Not step back, leave, hand the whole empire to my cousin and disappear with Julia to Portofino, open a restaurant, never touch a gun again. His thumb traced the ring's band. He couldn't allow that. A De Luca walking away is a weakness every rival family in this city would exploit within a week. So what did he do? Alessandro's silence stretched long enough that Aurora reached over and placed her hand over his, stilling the ring between his fingers. If you've ever had to ask someone to say the unbearable thing out loud, drop where you're watching from the comments right now, because Aurora is about to learn exactly what kind of man she fell in love with. He didn't touch her, Alessandro said finally. That would have been too obvious, too traceable back to him. Instead, he let the Moretti family know Julia existed. Let them know she was the reason the alliance my father had spent 20 years building was about to collapse. He looked up, and the fear Aurora had seen in the alley was nothing compared to what lived in his eyes now. Isabella's brother put a bullet in her outside her apartment, made it look like a robbery. I found her myself. I was 11 minutes late. Aurora's hand tightened over his. Alessandro. I buried her in a dress she never got to wear down an aisle. In a plot beside a church she used to light candles in every Sunday, and I told myself I would never again give this family, or this city, a woman's name to use as a weapon against me. His voice, always so controlled, frayed at the edges. For 4 years, I didn't so much as look at another woman twice. Then my father arranged Isabella, and I let it happen because a wife I didn't love was safer than a wife I did. And then you met me. Then I met you. A ghost of something. Not quite a smile, too much grief still living in it, crossed his face. Standing in flour up to your elbows, arguing with a customer about the correct way to eat a cannoli, completely unafraid of anything in the entire world. I told myself I would stay away. I lasted 3 days. The SUV slowed at a red light, rain drumming against the roof, and Aurora studied the man beside her, the tattoos disappearing beneath his collar, the empire he'd inherited and never asked for, the woman he'd buried and never stopped mourning. Isabella knows, she said slowly. That's why she looked at me like that in the alley. Isabella has known about you for 2 months. Her family still believes the engagement stands. My father never told them otherwise, because breaking it publicly means admitting the Moretus Golden Alliance failed, and pride like that gets people killed in this city. Alessandro's hand turned beneath hers, fingers lacing through her own. I've been trying to end it quietly. By time, protect you from exactly what happened tonight. By lying to me. By trying to keep you alive. His grip tightened, not painfully, just desperately, like a man holding onto the one solid thing left in a collapsing building. The man on that rooftop tonight, that was Isabella's brother's man. The same family that killed Julia. They're not shooting at me, Aurora. They're shooting to remind me what happens to women I love. The words settled over her like the rain outside. Cold, relentless, impossible to outrun. So this ring, she said, looking down at it still resting in his palm, isn't a merger. It isn't an arrangement. This ring is the only thing in 8 years I've wanted for myself, and not for this family. Alessandro lifted it between them, diamond catching the passing streetlight in a brief, sharp flash. Julia never got to wear one. My father made sure of that. I swore after I buried her that no one would ever wear De Luca ring again unless I was certain, absolutely certain, I could keep her alive long enough to grow old beside her. And you're certain about me. I have never been certain about anything the way I'm certain about you. His thumb brushed her knuckles, rain damp and trembling now, though whether from cold or fear Aurora could no longer tell. Which is why when you threw this ring at my feet an hour ago, it felt exactly like burying her a second time. Aurora's throat closed around a decade of feeling too big, too much, too easily discarded. And here, somehow, was a man who had buried the love of his life rather than risk losing her to violence, who had let an empire's engagement stand for 2 years rather than expose the woman he actually chose. Why didn't you just tell me? She whispered. From the beginning? Because the moment I told you the truth, Alessandro said, you would become a target the same way Julia did. I wanted to give you one more day of not being afraid before the whole world came looking for you. The SUV rolled to a stop outside a black iron gate, security cameras swiveling toward the car, and beyond it, a sprawling estate lit gold against the storm. Where are we? Aurora asked. Somewhere safe. Alessandro's eyes met hers, steady now, resolved. My father's house. Because tonight, you and I are going to end this arrangement with the Moretus for good, and he isn't going to like how I plan to do it. The gates groaned open on hydraulics that sounded far too well-maintained for a house Aurora hadn't known existed an hour ago, and the SUV crawled up a gravel drive lined with cypress trees bent sideways in the wind. Your father knows we're coming? Aurora asked. No. Alessandro's voice had gone flat, businesslike, the tone Aurora imagined he used in rooms where men's lives hung on his next sentence. That's exactly the point. Marco parked beneath a stone portico, and before the engine had fully died, the front doors of the estate swung open, spilling warm light across the wet steps. A man filled the doorway, older, broader through the shoulders than Alessandro, but with the same dark eyes, the same coiled stillness of someone who had spent decades being obeyed without question. Salvatore De Luca, Alessandro murmured, helping Aurora from the car. My father. Let me do the talking. Alessandro. Salvatore's voice carried across the courtyard, pleasant enough on the surface, edged underneath. You didn't call ahead, and you brought. His eyes swept over Aurora, cataloging her rain-ruined dress, her mud-streaked knees, the absence of anything resembling the tailored elegance he no doubt expected on his son's arm. Company. This is Aurora, Alessandro said, an arm settling protectively around her waist. The woman I'm going to marry. Salvatore's expression didn't change, which somehow frightened Aurora more than if he'd shouted. Come inside, both of you, before the neighbors start wondering why the De Luca family conducts business on the front steps. The house swallowed them into marble and gold leaf, portraits of unsmiling ancestors lining a hallway that seemed to stretch longer than the house's exterior should have allowed. Salvatore led them into a study-lined floor to ceiling with leather-bound books that Aurora doubted anyone had ever read, and shut the door with a click that felt final. "You brought a girl covered in someone else's blood into my home," Salvatore said, rounding his desk. "On the same night, I received a call that gunfire broke out 3 blocks from where the Morettis' youngest son happened to be dining. Then you already know what happened." "I know what I was told. I'd like to hear it from you." Salvatore's eyes cut to Aurora. "Privately." "She stays," Alessandro said. "Everything you say to me, you say in front of her. That's not a request." Something flickered across Salvatore's face. Surprise, maybe, that his son had finally grown a spine sharp enough to use against him. "Very well." He sat, steepling his fingers. "Isabella's brother's man opened fire on you and your, a pause, deliberate, cruel, guest. Do you understand what that means? It means the Morettis know the engagement is dead and they're done pretending otherwise. It means," Salvatore said, voice rising, "that 8 years of careful alliance building is about to unravel because you cannot keep your emotions separate from this family survival. Just as you couldn't with Giulia." Aurora watched Alessandro's whole body go rigid at the name, watched his hands curl into fists at his sides. "Don't," he said quietly, "say her name in this house." "Why not? It was you who insisted on loving a woman this family could never protect. It was your recklessness that got her killed. It was your silence that got her killed." The words tore out of Alessandro louder than Aurora had heard him speak all night, bouncing off the leather-bound spines lining the walls. "You knew what the Morettis would do the moment they learned about her. You said nothing. You let them find out. You told me it was an unfortunate accident of timing, and I believed you for 4 years, until Marco showed me the phone records last spring." The room went silent. Aurora's breath caught somewhere in her chest, watching Salvatore's composed mask crack for the first time since they'd walked in. "I did what was necessary to protect this family's interests," Salvatore said finally, each word measured, careful. "You murdered the woman I loved to keep a business alliance intact." Alessandro's voice had dropped to something dangerously calm. "And now you expect me to stand here and let you look at Aurora the same way you looked at Giulia, like she's an inconvenience to be managed rather than a person. I expect you to remember what you are." Salvatore rose slowly from behind the desk. "You are not a man who gets to choose love over legacy, Alessandro. You are the heir to everything I built from nothing, and this family does not survive on sentiment." "Then it's a good thing," Alessandro said, reaching into his jacket and pulling free a folded document Aurora hadn't known he was carrying, "that I stopped needing your permission for anything 18 months ago." He dropped the papers onto the desk between them, and Salvatore's eyes narrowed as he scanned the top page, color draining slowly from his face. "What is this?" "Controlling shares in every legitimate business this family owns, transferred into my name the day I turned 30, per the terms you yourself wrote into the family trust. I never activated them out of respect for you." Alessandro's voice didn't waver. "That respect ended the moment I found those phone records." Salvatore's hand trembled, barely, almost imperceptibly, but Aurora saw it, as he set the papers down. "You would destroy this family over a woman." "No." Alessandro reached for Aurora's hand, pulling her gently to his side, the ring still somehow warm in his other palm from where he'd carried it against his chest for the last hour. "I would destroy this family to save one. Starting tonight, the Moretti alliance is over. Starting tonight, you no longer decide who I love or what happens to them." Salvatore's eyes moved from his son to Aurora and back again, something calculating shifting behind them, something that made the hair on the back of Aurora's neck rise, even in the warm, gilded room. "You think ending an alliance is as simple as signing papers," Salvatore said slowly. "You have no idea what Isabella's father is capable of when he feels humiliated in front of his own men. You've made a decision tonight, Alessandro, that will not just endanger you." His eyes settled on Aurora with something almost like pity. "It will endanger everyone standing in this room." And that was the exact moment the study's window shattered inward, and every light in the De Luca estate went dark. Glass exploded across the study floor in a shower of black diamonds, and Aurora felt herself yanked sideways as Alessandro's body slammed into hers, both of them dropping behind the heavy oak desk a half-second before the second window went. "Stay down." Alessandro's voice cut through the darkness, low and lethal, nothing like the composed man who'd stood in this room moments earlier. "Alessandro, I can't see anything. That's the point. Generators are on a delay. 30 seconds, maybe less." His hand found her face in the dark, thumb brushing her cheek once, quick and desperate, before it was gone, replaced by the cold metal weight of a pistol pressed into her palm. "You know how to use this?" "No. I run a bakery, Alessandro. I don't." Then pointed at anything that isn't me and pull the trigger if it gets close enough to touch you. Across the room, Salvatore's voice rose in fury, barking orders in rapid Italian, and Aurora heard the study door burst open, heavy footsteps flooding in, at least 4 sets, maybe 5. "Family room, now, all of you." Salvatore's voice cut off mid-sentence, replaced by a sound Aurora would hear in her nightmares for years afterward, a wet, choking gasp, followed by the thud of a body hitting marble. "Papa." Alessandro's composure shattered entirely, and Aurora grabbed his arm in the dark, holding him behind the desk with a strength she didn't know she had. "You go out there, you die," she hissed. "Alessandro, listen to me. That's my father, and he'll want you alive more than he wants revenge, so stay down." A beat passed. 1, 2, 3. Agony stretched across it, and then the generators kicked in with a groan. Emergency lighting flooding the study in dim amber, and what Aurora saw stopped her heart cold. Salvatore lay crumpled near the doorway, blood pooling beneath him, 3 of Alessandro's men on the floor around him, and standing in the center of the wreckage, flanked by 2 gunmen, was Isabella Moretti, no longer soaked in rain, dressed now in black tactical gear that made the diamond she'd worn in the alley look like a costume from another life. If you've ever watched someone reveal exactly who they were the whole time, tell me in the comments the moment you knew you couldn't trust them. Because Aurora is about to learn Isabella wasn't just a jilted fiancée playing victim in the rain. "Alessandro," Isabella said pleasantly, stepping over one of the fallen men without so much as glancing down. "I did try to warn you in the alley. Asked him about the last one. I said, I was hoping you'd have the sense to send her home before it came to this." Alessandro rose slowly from behind the desk, positioning his body fully between Aurora and the gunman, hands raised just enough to show he wasn't reaching for anything. "Yet, you did this," he said. "Not your brother. You. My brother doesn't have the stomach for it. Never has." Isabella's smile was almost fond, almost sad. "I've been running the family's real business for 3 years, Alessandro, while everyone, including my own father, believed I was planning centerpieces and choosing a wedding date. It's remarkable what men don't notice when a woman smiles and nods. Let Aurora go. This is between you and me." "Is it?" Isabella tilted her head toward the desk. "Come out, Cura. I know you're back there. I promise I only want to talk." Aurora's grip tightened on the pistol Alessandro had pressed into her hand, her pulse a war drum in her throat, and slowly, because staying hidden meant Alessandro stood alone against 3 guns, she rose beside him. "There she is." Isabella's eyes raked over Aurora with something between curiosity and contempt. "You know, when I found out about you, I expected someone extraordinary. Someone worth throwing away a Moretti De Luca alliance for. Instead, I find a baker in a ruined dress." "I don't need your approval," Aurora said, and was surprised her voice came out steady. "No," Isabella agreed. "You need to survive the next 5 minutes, and that, unfortunately, is entirely up to how reasonable Alessandro decides to be." She turned back to him. "Here are your options. Sign the papers reinstating the alliance. Marry me as originally arranged. Formally end whatever this is." A dismissive gesture toward Aurora. "And everyone in this room who's still breathing gets to keep breathing. Or refuse, and I finish what my brother's man started in that alley. Except this time I won't miss." "You'd kill your own fiancée." I'd kill a man who humiliated my family in front of every other family in this city, Isabella said, voice sharpening. Love is a luxury for people who don't have empires to protect, Alessandro. You taught me that yourself, the first year we were engaged, before you decided you'd rather chase feelings than build something that lasts. Alessandro's jaw worked, and Aurora felt him calculating. The gunman's positions, the distance to the door, the odds of both of them walking out of this room alive. Give me the ring, Isabella said, holding out one gloved hand. The one she threw at your feet tonight, the one Julia never got to wear. Give it to me, put on my hand in front of witnesses, and this ends peacefully. No, Aurora said before Alessandro could speak. Isabella's eyes cut to her, sharp with surprise. Excuse me, that ring isn't going on your hand. Aurora's voice shook, but she didn't lower it. You want to kill me for standing next to him, then kill me. But you will never wear something that means what that ring means, because you just proved you don't understand the first thing about why he chose it. For a long, breathless moment, nobody in the ruined study moved. Not Isabella, not her gunman, not Alessandro, whose hand had found Aurora's free one and was gripping it hard enough to bruise. And then Isabella's expression shifted into something cold and final as she raised two fingers toward her men. Then I suppose, she said quietly, we do this the hard way. Isabella's fingers hadn't finished the gesture when the study door slammed open behind her gunman, and Marco's voice roared through the chaos. Down! Everybody down! The next 3 seconds happened faster than Aurora's mind could process. Marco and 4 De Luca men flooding through the doorway, gunfire erupting in short, controlled bursts, one of Isabella's gunmen crumpling before he'd even finished turning. Alessandro moved on pure instinct, driving Aurora down behind the desk again, his body a wall between her and the bullets tearing through the study's ruined air. You said 30 seconds on the generators. Aurora gasped. I lied, Alessandro said, and for the first time all night, there was something almost like a grim smile on his face. Marco's had this house wired for a breach since the day I found those phone records. I've been waiting for my father to force my hand for 18 months. Above them, the gunfire stopped as abruptly as it started. Aurora heard Isabella's voice, no longer smooth and composed, screaming something in furious Italian, and then the unmistakable sound of a struggle. Bodies hitting furniture, a woman's cry of pain, and finally, silence. Clear, Marco called. Alessandro rose first, pulling Aurora up with him, and what she saw stole the breath from her lungs. Isabella was on her knees, hands zip-tied behind her back, one of her remaining gunmen face down beside her, Marco's boot planted firmly between his shoulder blades. Near the doorway, 2 of Alessandro's men knelt over Salvatore, pressing a jacket hard against the wound in his shoulder. He's alive, one of them called. Bullet missed anything vital. Barely. Relief broke across Alessandro's face for just a moment before it hardened back into something colder, something Aurora hadn't seen from him yet. Not the boardroom mask, not the fear from the alley, but the full weight of a man who had just watched 2 women he loved be threatened by the same family in the span of 4 years. He crossed the room to where Isabella knelt, crouching to her eye level. It's over, he said quietly. The alliance, your family's claim on mine, all of it. And you're going to spend a very long time explaining to whoever's left of the Moretti organization why their heir got caught staging an assassination in a rival family's home. You'll regret this, Isabella spat. My father will burn this city down looking for retribution. Your father, Alessandro said, is going to spend tonight learning his daughter has been running a shadow operation behind his back for 3 years. I don't think retribution is going to be his first priority. He rose, nodding once to Marco. Get her out of here. Call it in through the usual channels. Let the family sort out what happens to her. That's not blood I want on my hands tonight. As Marco hauled Isabella to her feet, her eyes found Aurora one last time across the wreckage of the study. And for just a moment, the contempt slipped, replaced by something that looked almost like grudging respect. For what it's worth, Isabella said, I hope you're worth what he's about to lose because of you. Then she was gone, dragged out through the shattered doorway, and the study fell into a strange, ringing quiet. Broken glass glittering under emergency lights, blood soaking into an ancient rug, the portraits of unsmiling ancestors watching over all of it like they'd seen this exact scene play out a dozen times across 100 years. Alessandro turned to Aurora, and whatever composure he'd held together through the last 2 hours finally cracked entirely. His hands found her face, trembling now, checking her over inch by inch the way he had in the alley, like he still couldn't quite believe she was standing in front of him breathing. "You could have died tonight," he said, voice raw, "because of my family, because of choices I made before I ever knew you existed. I'm still here. You shouldn't have to be brave enough to survive loving me." His forehead dropped to hers, both of them still catching their breath, still shaking from adrenaline that hadn't finished leaving their bodies. "I need you to understand that if you walk away tonight, I will not blame you. Not after everything you just saw." Aurora pulled back just far enough to look at him. Really look at him, at the blood on his collar that wasn't his, at the fear still living behind his eyes, at 8 years of grief and violence and duty this man had carried alone since he was young enough that he shouldn't have had to carry any of it. "Do you remember what I told Isabella?" she asked. "That she'd never wear that ring because she didn't understand what it meant." "I remember. I understand what it means, Alessandro." Aurora's hand covered as where it still rested against her cheek. "It means you've buried the first woman you loved rather than let anyone use her against you again. It means tonight, you chose me over an empire your father spent decades building. It means I'm not walking away from a man who just tore his entire world apart to protect mine." Alessandro's breath caught, and slowly, carefully like he still couldn't quite trust the moment to hold, he reached into his jacket one final time and drew out the ring, diamond catching the amber emergency light in a soft, steady glow that felt nothing like the harsh flash of it hitting marble 2 hours ago. "Then marry me," he said, "not because my father arranged it, not because an alliance needs saving, because you looked at everything I am tonight, the blood, the lies, the danger that follows my name into every room I enter, and you stayed anyway." Aurora looked down at the ring, then back up at the man holding it, tattoos disappearing beneath a torn and bloodied collar, an empire crumbling and rebuilding itself around them in real time. "Ask me properly," she whispered, "and find out. If this story kept you holding your breath from that first alley to this very last line, hit like, drop a comment telling me which moment hit hardest, and subscribe, because Alessandro and Aurora's story is only just beginning, and you will not want to miss what comes next."